Alright, what's up ladies and gentlemen? Hope your guys' day is going as good as mine. Today, as any other day, we have a lot to talk about, so let's dive straight into it. So today I really want to focus on the daily principles. So I prepared a list of every major geopolitical, political, and financial event that happened in the last 24 hours, and I cannot wait to talk about it. Okay, so starting off, a Reuters poll of economists now shows the Federal Reserve is likely to keep interest rates unchanged through May 2026, with rate cuts forecast later in the year once the next Fed chair takes over. Economists are divided on when cuts might begin and are widely concerned about a potential erosion of Fed independence under political pressure and the upcoming Warsh nomination. The U.S. economy added a stronger than expected 130,000 jobs in January, with the unemployment rate ticking down to 4.3%. This pushed markets and traders to scale back expectations for rapid rate cuts by the Fed, reinforcing a view that policy will stay steady, even as underlying growth appears moderate rather than booming. Gold, which had been relying on softer sentiment and cautious markets, cut back earlier gains after the strong U.S. job data. Investors are now balancing safe haven demand with the rising likelihood that rates stay unchanged, tempering bullish metal positioning. The International Monetary Fund formally called on South Africa to adopt a clearer and stronger government debt limit, stressing that policy clarity is needed to maintain fiscal stability and investor confidence. This highlights ongoing concerns about sovereign credit markets and fiscal risk in emerging economies. Across global markets, trading is mixed and cautious as investors position ahead of key U.S. data releases and central bank guidance. This reflects broader risk management behavior, with risk assets sensitive to economic prints and expectations for monetary policy. The Fed is firmly in policy pause mode, with no rate changes expected through at least May. But markets are watching incoming chair Kevin Warsh's stance and political pressures on Fed independence. Strong U.S. job growth data undermines the short-term rate cut bets, solidifying a view among traders that interest rates will stay elevated. Safe havens like gold trimmed gains as robust job data tempered risk aversion, meaning markets are balancing safety with a more resilient growth narrative. The IMF's call for clear debt rules in South Africa points to systematic worries over fiscal sustainability and sovereign credit conditions in emerging economies. With the Fed likely keeping rates steady, loan and mortgage rates aren't expected to drop soon, which matters if you're refinancing or considering new debt. Stronger job data suggests that the labor market isn't weak, which can support consumer confidence, but markets are also cautious about broader growth dynamics. The shift in rate cut expectation impacts everything from bonds to stocks. Safe haven assets like gold may not rally as strongly if the economy looks stable. IMF pushes for budget discipline can shape investor confidence and sovereign borrowing costs, which ultimately influence global risk pricing. Most people set goals, but very few people define who they're becoming. And that's why most people drift. For today's philosophical thing, I want to talk about the second habit from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. And I'm going to use myself as the example. Beginning with the end in mind doesn't mean setting random goals. It means defining the final outcome clearly before you start moving. If you don't define the end, you don't control the direction. You react, you drift, you chase whatever feels urgent, and that's how years disappear. Up until this point, I've been very private and very quiet about my goals so that I can use them as an example in the future. So, before making today's video, I asked myself the simple question of, what is the end of this channel? And I don't mean in a month, I don't mean in a year, I mean what does this become in 2 to 3 years? For me, the goal is 1 million subscribers, but that number isn't the real end. The real end for me is building a platform that helps people understand discipline, money, entrepreneurship, geopolitics, politics, finance, and how the world actually works, so they can build leverage instead of getting trapped in cycles that don't serve them. I don't want to complain about the system. I want to understand it and teach others how to navigate it intelligently. If someone hears my name years from now, I want them to think disciplined, entrepreneur, actually lives what he teaches, authentic, respectable, calm under pressure, looking for win-win solutions. And that's the real end, because subscribers without reputation means nothing. Views without credibility mean nothing. If the end isn't clear, you sacrifice long-term respect for short-term attention. And that's a trade I'm not interested in. Now, the reason I created this channel was to have accountability in public, a place to sharpen my own thinking, a way to document the journey of building real things, a way to connect with serious people, and have a long-term asset, not just a hobby. If it brings business connections, credibility, and monetization,
Good, I'll use that to my advantage. But even if it doesn't explode immediately, it forces me to think clearly and act intentionally. That alone makes this valuable. Now, here's the real test behind beginning with the end in mind. Would I still post if my videos got 200 views for a year? Yes, because even if 200 people hear the message and apply it, that matters, and consistency compounds. If I define the end clearly, I don't get distracted by short-term numbers. Most people never define their end. They say they want success, they say they want freedom, they say they want influence, but they don't define who they are becoming, what reputation they are building, what their work is actually for. If you don't choose your end, the world will choose it for you, and usually it's below average. So this is me applying beginning with the end in mind in real time. The end of this channel isn't just subscribers, it's discipline, credibility, impact, leverage, growth. And if I stay aligned with that end, the numbers will follow. If you haven't defined your end yet, do it. Because drifting is easy, building intentionally is rare, and rare is where opportunity is. Now, here's the important part. How do you actually apply this? Because it sounds good to say begin with the end in mind, but what does that mean practically? Here's what I would tell you to do. First, stop thinking in short-term goals. Instead of asking, what do I want this year? Ask, what do I want in 5 years? Not what you want to have, but who you want to be. Do you want to be disciplined, financially independent, physically strong, calm under pressure, respected? Write that down. Be specific, because if you don't define it, you won't move toward it. Second, define your reputation. If someone says your name when you're not in the room, what do you want them to say? That question is powerful, because your daily behavior either builds that reputation or destroys it. If you say you want to be respected but you act emotionally, that's misalignment. If you say you want to be disciplined but you avoid hard things, that's also misalignment. Habit 2, also known as beginning with the end in mind, always forces alignment. Third, reverse engineer your life. Once you define the end, work backwards. If you want to be financially independent, what skills would that require? If you would like to be respected, how do respected people act? If you want leverage, what assets are you building? The future version of you already exists in your head. Now all that's left is matching your daily actions to that version. Fourth, pressure test your goals. Ask yourself, if nobody clapped for this, would I still do it? If the answer is no, you're chasing validation. If the answer is yes, you're building identity. That difference changes everything. Finally, understand this. If you don't design your end, you drift into someone else's design. Social media will design it, friends will design it, culture will decide it, but intentional people design their own end. And once that end is clear, decisions get easier. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing? And start asking, does this move me toward the person I said I am becoming? That is beginning with the end in mind in action.